Hello, friends. How are you today? We're going to talk about laning, which, what even is it? I don't even know. At the start of the game, you'll be in your respective lanes. We, as the hard support, we're usually in the safe lane. And then you lane, I guess. It's really weird because every game, there are some stuff you do every single time, but then a lot of it is kind of on the fly decision making. It's hard for me to give you this exact plan of like, step one, we do this, step two, we do this, because it does just kind of, we wing it really. So that's kind of what today is going to be about. We're going to talk about all these different things you can do in the laning stage, some general advice for it, but then in the end, you're going to kind of have to wing it on your own. Every lane is unique. We can come up with a general plan up to this point. So in the videos in the past, we've covered we leave Fountain right away at about the negative 130 minute mark. Then, after the runes and all that, we didn't even need to put that on our list. At around the 15-second mark, we want to stand in lane, take a look at where the creeps are, whether they're being blocked or not, so that we know where they're going to meet, how much our carry should block it, or whether we need to get in the way to interrupt the creeps. Around 30 seconds, that's when they would actually meet. We do not want the creeps to be under tower. That's really the same thing as the time, the 15-second plan, but Then 45 seconds around there, that's when the enemy 4 may look to pull the second wave, and we have to decide, are we going to contest that, or do we go harass the offlaner because we can't contest it? That's when we have to decide. And then, based on our pull video last time, what I recommend is to aim for the half pull at 118, and then you can choose to either half pull again at 148 or to stack at 153. After that, you just do your best. It's really hard to give an exact plan on what to do because, okay, story time. Here was my original plan. So when I was writing this guide and I was on a break, I was deciding what is the theoretical plan I want to follow that I think position 5 should do, should aim for. This is what I wrote down. And each of them makes sense, we can run through it, check for regen and wards. Yeah, easy to do. Aim to secure a range creep. Yeah, I remembered at the start. Found out Jakira was really bad at it, and it slowly slipped my mind, and I forget a lot. I'll admit it. It's something I need to work on. Using mana, I'm actually pretty good at that, I think. Managing how much regen I have, all of that. I'm fine with that. Stack the camp at 2 minutes. Everything after this, the plan fell apart when I started playing Dota again. First game, enemy Mirana body blocked the small camp, and I was like, I can't stack an empty camp. Now what? Second game, I was against an ogre position 4 who bought boots, and then he just ran at me. The whole time. He didn't care about doing anything else. He just ran at me, whether it was good or not. He ran at me, and he hit me, and I couldn't trade with him because it's an ogre, and he just hit me with his club, and I panicked, and I forgot everything else. Third game, I think I was playing mid because I had to get my roll Q tokens, so forget that. The next time I was hard support, I played against Nature's Prophet and Clockwork. Super oppressive lane that was just high aggro, very difficult to do anything because if you step too far out of position, they just kill you. Everything I planned for just gone. And that's kind of what laning is, where you can make a plan, and I do recommend it to have this general idea of what you want to do, but just know it's going to be really hard to stick to it because every game is unique, and it's very rarely so easy to say, this is what I'll do, this is how it's going to happen. What I found was that it's better to make this plan, understand what you're trying to get out of the lane, but then realize that you're just going to have to do it fluidly, that you're just going to have to see, okay, I'm looking to pull. My next opportunity is at 2 minutes, but if that gets interrupted, I will do my next best option and then look to pull at the, next opportunity. It just had to constantly shift your priority in what you can do. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about these different possibilities of things you can do. And then you are just going to have to do your best in the lane to all right, this was the best thing, that got stopped. Okay, next best thing. Go like that. First, let's cover some basic laning advice. So I think the very first thing you need to do is, what is my objective in this lane? And we've kind of covered this a bit, say in the Golden Experience video or in the drafting video about identifying whether your lane is strong or weak. Based on all of that, you then have to decide, okay, do we need kills in this lane? Like, is that what we're here to do? Where like Ursa Shadow Shaman, we're here for kills more than farm. And of course you want farm, but like kills are a big thing for that lane. Or is it farm, where you're like a Spectre and kills aren't really happening? So you're just thinking about, okay, gold, 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 gold. That's like all to Spectre. All my actions should reflect that. I should be able to justify how what I am doing is pushing gold towards Spectre. Maybe a specific level you need, so like the Naga Siren in a bad lane example, where I just need to do whatever I can to get her to like level 4 or 5, and then she can ditch this lane, go to the jungle, and that's where she's going to get her farm. So like she would love to farm in the lane, and if it's a lane where we can do that, then yeah, our priority should be farming. But if it's a really tough time, then we have to realize, okay, getting farm is unrealistic in this case. We'll get her to 4 or 5, she can go jungle, and that's where she'll get her farm, and we'll switch it up like that. So whatever objective you identify, do so. Like, you should pick something that you're aiming to do. And then later, if you look back at your own game, or like as you're deciding what to do, ask yourself, how does this help me accomplish my objective? Next, is it worthwhile trading harass? So this is very common in laning, where you use spells on each other, you hit them. How does that help you with your objective? It's usually good, right? But why? So in terms of kills, well, we're getting them weaker, right? So it's easier to kill. Yeah, okay, that works. What if it's a farm heavy lane? Is it still good to harass? Well, it can be. Sometimes it's hard to farm because the enemy is threatening you. But can an enemy threaten you when they only have like 200 health? Not really. So by harassing them, maybe we are helping to secure farm by making the lane a little easier. Now, what if we are losing those trades and we're the ones getting low? Well, now it's hurting our ability to get farm. And so if we realize that we will be on the losing end of a trade, so maybe we have worse stats, less regen items, whatever, then suddenly we might realize, wait a minute, if we're trading, this is benefiting the enemy team. We're not going to be able to farm if we trade harass like this. So now it's okay not to harass. It is okay to just kind of sit in the back, look to, say, pull or something. And you know what? Before I even continue further on this list, I will say all of this only applies in a game where you have similar skills with your opponent, or like relatively good players. Because if their hero is supposed to be better at trading, but they just let you hit them for free, then just hit them for free, right? The whole concept of trading, the whole concept of I need this to be effective and to be safe, like that only applies if they're any good. And if they just never go on you, then it's like, I don't care that I'm at 100 health. This guy doesn't know to hit me, so what does it matter? So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of these, that if you identify the other player is really bad, then suddenly you can do greedier things that you're not supposed to be able to do, but they're just letting you do it. So you should do it if you want to win. These are all things where, in a normal game of how Dota should be played, this is more realistic of what's going to happen. Like, oh, he's going to trade with me. Like, is that any good? And I will say a good way to think about trading harass, at least this works for me, I think of every hero in this game, in the early game anyways, as someone who is within 10 to 20 auto attacks away from dying, even at full health. So say you're a support with like 600 health. Sounds like a lot. You probably don't have that much armor though. And if the enemy attack does, let's say 50 damage, that is 12 auto attacks. And then you're dead. Now, of course, you'll regen a little bit, and maybe your armor will reduce some of that damage, but bump it up, like 14 auto attacks from dying. So that's where trading harass, I think, that's like when I think of that, where I'm trading like 2 auto attacks with this guy, and he only hit me once. I'm like, aha, I'm 13 hits from dying, but you, sir, are 12. I think that's a great way to think about trying to get in those extra auto attacks, or why you should be worried when you see them hit you a couple free times, and you're like, wait, I haven't hit them back at all. I'm I'm getting close to dying and they're not. This is an issue. So if that helps, think about it that way. How much mana and HP do I need to be effective? Some heroes need one or the other, or both. Ogre Magi, in my example, he really only needed health because like he wasn't even casting spells. He was just running at me and hitting me. And he had good attack damage and he had great movement speed. He had good armor and regen so that if I tried to trade right clicks with him, like it wasn't doing that much. And even if he didn't use any spells, like he was just winning pure right click battles. And if I did try to use a spell, honestly, his regen was like good enough where like he didn't care. Or because he had boots, he could just walk away until my spell was done and then come back when I was trying to do something. So Ogre only needs health, really, depending how you're playing him. Now, other heroes might need mana. So someone like Shadow Shaman with that Ursa combo, if he has no mana, what does he really contribute? He's got a pretty solid right-click damage, but his range is really short. And he's really supposed to be there to shackle and, maybe get some burst damage out, hex them. You can only do that with mana. So if he doesn't have mana, he doesn't really do anything in the lane. And the enemy should note that. Like, if this Shadow Shaman has full health but no mana, it's like, let's just ignore this guy. What does he do to us? He doesn't do anything. Recognizing what you need is a good way to know if, like, should you buy more regen? Should you be going back to base maybe? Maybe you can pull while you clarity. Like, that is all in regards to making sure you can be effective with how much health and mana you have. Some heroes don't need HP. Like, it's a very rare case where you only need mana and you don't really care about how much health you have, but it can happen. So I would say someone like Treant, who, I don't know why I said it so weird, Treant, who has his, he has a lot of healing spells as well as an amplification passive. So if he's low health but has a lot of mana, he can just spam out some heals. If he has any form of regen, it'll amplify while he's sitting in lane. He doesn't have to be as worried. And especially because he can sit so deep in the trees, like he's not too scared of dying at low health. So that kind of example, think about what you need. Constantly move in and out of the fog of war. So this is just generally good to do. I think I gave this example in a replay analysis, or maybe I was answering someone's questions. I don't remember. But imagine you always show in lane. You're always standing there, and you want to go pull. But you've been showing in lane for like the last 2 minutes. And now you leave lane, and you're not close to dying. You're like relatively healthy. You got mana. And they're going to say, wait a minute. This guy's just been sitting in lane this whole time. Why did he suddenly leave? What do hard supports like to do? Hey, they like to pull. I bet that guy just went to pull. I'm going to go check and go stop him. If you constantly show in and out of lane and hide in the fog of war for like 5 seconds for no reason, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be out of sight. Then that becomes normal. And say you look like you're walking away for 5 seconds, they might just think, oh, he did this last time. He was just standing in the trees. And then he came out and hit me. He tricked me. I thought he left, but he was just here. So I'm not going to go check yet. You get those like 5 extra seconds where they're not walking towards you to pull. And then after, say, 10 or 15 seconds, then they start thinking like, okay, wait, he's usually here by now. Like, he only like hid for like a couple seconds. Like, maybe I should go check now. But that extra time you just bought is enough to get a pull going, maybe get a creep killed, get some of the experience and gold from the small camp to yourself. So buying some extra time for yourself by slowing their reaction times is good. And also, like we talked about in the teleport video, you only need to be out of sight for 3 seconds, and then you could have teleported to a completely different lane. That's why map awareness is such a big thing in Dota, and the higher level you go, the better like your map awareness has to be. Where if, let's say the mid laner, he checks the minimap and he sees that you're just always in lane. And then when you're not in lane, it becomes really suspicious. He's thinking, oh, I should back off. But if you're constantly coming in and out of lane, he should also have that feeling of like, well, he just kind of does that. So I don't really know if he's like actually left. And then maybe you haven't left, but maybe if you do want to gank, you could teleport somewhere, smoke, and before he gets suspicious, you're already set up to go on him. So it's just generally good to constantly pop in and out of the fog of war, even if you're not really doing anything. It's just to set up this idea that I could be doing something. Next, cut the trees that open the pathway to your tower. I think we talked about this in one of the videos. It's just to make it easier to move between the tower and safety, and especially now that the tower gives bonus armor and regen, it helps to make your trading much more worthwhile. Where if you're popping in and out of that, you're getting that regen, and when their auto attacks hit you, you've got some armor. But it also makes it possible to just not get trapped. I've talked about this a bit in like some of the replay analysis videos, so I won't go too much into it, especially because we'll cover it again in the future when we're looking at replays. So I feel like this kind of just cut the trees and play it for yourself, and I think you'll see why it feels a lot better. Instead of having to run all the way around the trees where you might die, by having those short paths to safety, just opens up some opportunities for you. Killing the courier is a trap, like 50% of the time. And I say this as someone that loves killing couriers. How many times have you gone to kill a courier? You see it and you're like, oh, I'm going to get this. And then either A, it gets away because you're slow and you don't do a lot of damage, and you're like, I almost had it. Or B, and this is likely as a follow-up to A, you just die. They kill you because you like ran out of position to kill their courier. It's happened to me a lot. I'll admit it. It's tempting to get it because it seems slow and it's like it's gold for the whole team. But we're just not usually that good at it unless you're a really fast hero or you have a lot of attack damage. It usually just puts you in a bad position that gets you killed, and then it's no good. And honestly, even if you do get the kill, but the courier has delivered its items, it's like it's not such a big deal. And that if you take a lot of damage here, even if you don't die, like that can really hurt your laning stage. Because again, going back to that question of how much mana and HP do I need to be effective? Because if the courier already delivered its items, it takes 30 seconds to go back and 30 seconds to run out again. So it would have been a minute before they could use their courier anyways, and most people are not going to need to buy something immediately like that again anyways. So throwing your life away to get that courier that they probably weren't going to need again anyways is no good. Plus, they could just have their teammate get it. They can drop the item, the teammate's courier can bring it out, or the teammate dies and they can TP back with the items. Now with the courier change, it's just like there are more couriers to kill, but that's actually why it became less worthwhile to die for it, because it now like it only hurts one person and it doesn't necessarily hurt them that much. Now, the exception to this is if it hasn't delivered its items yet and you see it has something very worthwhile, like say they have low health and you see a salve on the way, that can be very good to kill because now they're going to be low health for say 2 or 3 minutes until they can get their courier again, and they have to choose to go back and then run back out again full health but waste a lot of time doing that, or risk being there and dying. Now, of course, if they needed the salve, they're probably not going to stand that far out, so the opportunity to kill the courier isn't really there. But yeah, that's kind of why. It's like, if they really needed an item, they were going to be playing safe and get the courier. And if they were just like, yeah, I'll get this item when it gets here, and you kill that courier, they're kind of like, oh, I didn't really need that item, so it's like kind of okay, and I just killed the support now. So you have to really ask yourself, like, is this a good idea? Am I about to die for it? And you know what? I'm totally okay with you trying to do it if you think you can, and then dying, and you go, that was a mistake. Because that's just a learning experience to understand, like, what you can do and what you can get away with. And, like, my friends used to make fun of me where I'd be like, I don't know if I can do this. Here we go. Let's find out. Because they'd be like, you're always feeding. But that's how you learn to push the limits of your heroes to know what you can do. Like, can I... Like, if you're SF, like, can I Yule's ult this guy and kill him with a couple raises? I'm not sure, like, how much damage I can do. The only way you're going to know is if you do it. You might lose that game for it, but overall, it makes you a better player. And I'm not advocating, like, just throwing for the sake of it. Really think, like, I think I can do this. Try to push limits and see what that can get you. And then finally, understand your hero. Because in the end, it does determine kind of everything else you can do on this list. Like, that ogre with boots that I was so annoyed with because he had high armor, high regen, good auto attack damage. Do you think if a Crystal Maiden buys boots, it would have nearly the same effect? Not at all. I would have just traded with her. I would have just been like, I do more damage than you, right? And that I'm the one that wants to chase you, but you approach me? It doesn't make any sense. You have to know what your hero can do to help you decide, like, this is how much mana I need. Or like, I should have traded this way. Treant Protector, he doesn't want to cut trees to his tower because it doesn't benefit him. He can just run back and through it on his own. And if he really needs to, then he can cut the tree when he needs it, as opposed to having it set up already. Every hero has some of these unique aspects that you want to consider when answering all these questions and some of the opportunities we're about to go into next. So I do recommend, to understand your hero and what they can do, just watch some replays of high level players and see how they approach the laning stage. You know, you'll see that a Bane player looks to trade a lot of right clicks, and then when they've lost a bit of health, that's when they use brain set. You know, these little tricks and play styles, or like you'll see someone weaker and they'll be like, oh, I noticed they're trying to pull a lot because they don't think they're very good at trading. Or maybe I watched another game and then they were trading a lot, so maybe it was about what offlane hero they were against. You know, just watching those things can really give you an insight on how that hero is played. So I think that's totally worth taking the time to do. Let's talk about opportunities to be aggressive here, which is different from just harassing. I'm going to clarify. Harassing to me is just something you can do for free, but without really intending to go further with it. So, like, I just wanted to hit this guy once or twice with my auto attack because I could put him in his place, you know, keep him a little low. Or like, hey, I had full mana, I've got a Sage's Mask, so I thought I should use a spell so I could, you know, make use of that regen. Yeah, these are good reasons to harass, to start chipping away at the enemy's health, hopefully not taking too much ourselves. But it sets up this opportunity to be aggressive. So, what are some chances to be aggressive? Whether the enemy heroes are healthy or not. You know, if they're weak from, like, you've been harassing well, then yeah, that's an opportunity to go. And I probably should have put that on that list, but I didn't. But I think that one's clear, right? If the offlaner walks up with 200 health, it's like, yo, get this guy. He shouldn't be up here. But sometimes you can go aggressive even at full health because there are things in your favor. So that's what this is about. 1, when the enemy spells are on CD. This is obvious when you say it, but there's like this disconnect between like recognizing that and then actually doing it. You have to think to actually do it. So for example, let's say Legion Commander. She has her spell Overwhelming Odds, which makes it very risky to approach her in the actual lane because you're going to take this big burst of damage if both of you go on her in the creep wave. If she uses it to secure a lane creep, well, now might be a good time to play a little more aggressively because she can't burst you with that Overwhelming Odds spell. So it's kind of this nice chance. Another way I see this is when someone has like a stun, for example. I'm thinking of Lion, even though he's not the best example, but we'll just go with it. So like, say you try to fight a Lion. You go and trade auto attacks, so you both hit each other once or twice, and then he stuns you and keeps auto attacking you, and you start to get low, and you're like, oh, I'm scared, I back away. But that was actually that was when he's weak. He doesn't have his stun anymore. And even though you took that initial burst of damage, well, it depends on your hero, of course, but that is the time when he is weakest. Like right now, he can only use auto attacks. The reason you got scared is because he got, you know, some damage from his stun and he got a free auto attack off, maybe 1 or 2. But maybe you had a spell as well that you could now use to be aggressive. People will back away because they get low from that initial stun and they think, oh, I got to go heal up. They heal up and then they go try to trade again. And then the same thing happens. Lion like trades a couple and then he stuns. And it's like, oh, I'm always losing these trades. Well, because you're only trading when he's at his strongest, when he has his stun. You need to commit sometimes. Like if he uses his stun, like that is actually the time to pursue the trade. And that is what evens out the trade. Like if you stop when he gets that burst of damage, naturally it favors him. And then you had to use a salve and then you just did the same thing. Again, very dependent on your hero and the enemy hero. Like knowing when you're strong at trading is very important to know your own hero, but then as well against enemy heroes. So knowing that, oh, Lion used his stun, like this is a good time to go on him. That's very important. Nowadays, like I have a very good feeling of Jakiro now that I've played him like so many games. And I find that I win trades that I'm not supposed to because people don't recognize like, oh, I just used dual breath on them. They shouldn't fight me. But then they try to without realizing the effects of the attack slow on them and that I'm going to win those trades. So that is a mix of me knowing my hero, knowing that I want to trade right now, actually, because they're slowed, their attack slowed, and this is like my chance to get off some good right-click trading. And they misunderstand. They think like, oh, he already used his spell on me, like I can fight. But actually, as long as my spell's going, like, I'm happy to fight. Let's see, what else? When you have more creeps. I would say more than 2 is a good way to put it. Because, you know, if you only have 1 creep more, it's not that big of a deal. Like, they're getting hit by 3 creeps, you're getting hit by 2 creeps. Like, it's yeah, it's an advantage, but it's not that big of an advantage. I like 2 or more. And a good way to think about this, so earlier I mentioned, you know, every hero is like 10 to 20 auto attacks away from dying. In terms of creep hits, it'll depend if a hero is melee or not, and how much armor they have. But in general, about 3 auto attacks from a creep, or 1 auto attack from 3 creeps, is roughly equal to how much damage a hero might do, don't you think? Especially against ranged heroes. So, if you had, say, 3 creeps on your side and they had none, and you were fighting, like, you have a significant advantage that many people don't recognize, right? If I said 2 heroes versus 2 heroes, you say, okay, that's relatively even. If I said 3 heroes versus 2 heroes, everyone knows that that third hero, that's unfair. You know, even if that third hero only auto attacks, like, obviously they have the advantage. But 3 creeps are doing about the same damage as that third hero. So recognizing how much creeps can do is pretty useful, I think, especially at lower ranks where people aren't appreciating how much creeps do. Then, when their last creep is about to die, this connects to the last point where if their creep is about to die, our creeps are going to look for a new target. And so if there are no more lane creeps, they're going to go to the enemy hero. So now is a great time to stun him so that he can't back away, and then our creeps get to hit him like once or twice. And like we just talked about, that's some free harass that is adding to, you know, if all our creeps, let's say we had 3 creeps, hit him twice during that stun, we just did like 2 auto attacks worth of a hero's hits. That's pretty good. When they have to get a last hit, this could be a good opportunity. This is more of a time to harass, actually, but it can be a way to set up a more aggressive of play. So, like, you need to know, it's hard to know where a hero is going to move, right? People are a little sporadic, except when they need to get a last hit, you know that they have to walk up to that creep and hit it. So you know where they're going to be. And if you're just harassing, this is a good time to right-click them, because guess what? They can't hit this creep to get the last hit and hit you. So if you're just harassing, then you're getting a free auto attack off where they can't retaliate. Or if you have a stun like Lena's or Leshrax, someone who has to set up a stun and that it's been difficult for you to get in range and no one else can like set it up, you know they're going to be there. And so you can drop the stun preemptively, and if they see you do it and they back away, okay, you can get the deny on the creep, so that's pretty good. Depending what creep, you know, maybe not worth a spell. Usually it's worth it on the range creep, but other options are like if they're going for the melee creep and you decide, okay, stun, go on him. You know, combining this with the previous 2 points is very good. When they go for the last hit on the last creep, or they try to deny the last creep in their wave maybe, and you still have a wave going, then like you combine all of these, like we have more creeps, their creep is about to die, he's trying to get a last hit, I know exactly where he's going to be, boom, stun, boom, all these creeps attacking him, easy. Even if he doesn't die, he's taken a lot of damage for free. So, maybe this should have gone in the last video, in hindsight, but I think it's okay here as well. So opportunities to pull. Where previously we discussed, you know, kind of what pulling was, how it affects the lane depending what kind of pull we do, and like what stage the lane is at. And that's why I think that like that works, the separation, where now we are debating like, is this what we want to do? So we recognize, oh, I can do this pull and this pull at this time and it would be okay. But do I want to do that? Is there something better I could be doing? Or what might the negative repercussions of that pull do? So like, yeah, it might work out lane equilibrium wise, but maybe my carry will take too much damage. So it's not a good time for me to pull. You know, first we recognized when we have an opportunity, and now this video is more about making you aware that I still have to choose my opportunities, like which one I want to do. Although I guess this slide in particular is still identifying different opportunities. So anyways, when your lane is heavily pushing and you don't want it to be. So like before we said, okay, at equilibrium, there's only some pulls you can do. You know, when you're slightly pushing, some pulls you can do. When your lane is heavily pushing, You could generally do any kind of pull and it works out because the enemy creeps are unlikely to come under your tower, and that is usually what created the issues. So you can pull, and usually it's good to do, but there are a couple cases where you may not want to do that. So, for example, if you just killed the enemy and you want to get some good tower damage off, say you have a carry who's good at that, like Wraith King, and he's got a bunch of his skelly boys to wreck that tower, then maybe you don't want to pull the wave because you want those extra creeps there to soak up some extra tower shots so that you can take that tower. Or maybe you want to push the lane a bit so that it's a little safer to go get runes, for example. Like if the enemy team has 8 creeps at their tower, you're much safer to get the rune than if there's only like 4 creeps there. Then they might be willing to say like, oh, let's go quickly go get that rune and then we'll come back to this. Missing 8 creeps versus just a couple, like that's different. So that can be a time when it's like you want it to push. Another example is the catapult wave. So if you're planning to do tower damage, like the catapult wave goes by and you're thinking, I'll pull the next wave. Well, you might actually want that next wave to go reinforce the catapult wave to make it stronger to push. And in fact, this can be a time to actually do a single pull, to either single pull the wave in front of the catapult or the catapult wave itself so that it's delayed a bit and then it joins up with the next wave. So either the wave in front of the catapult wave joins the catapult, or the catapult joins the wave behind it. And now you have this bigger wave to push with the catapult. So that could be a time when you want to do a small pull that pulls the entire creep wave because your plan is to push. But there are lineups where your plan is almost never to push, like with a Spectre, right? Where Spectre's awful at taking towers. Even in the late game, she's so bad at it. And so there, like, it's kind of pointless to let creeps go because we're not going to get this tower. So it would be better to deny a couple creeps here and for me to get some golden experience from the camp. So recognize whether you want to push or not, and then that might affect how you want to pull or not. Next, when the enemy is alone, you'll notice this point was also in the last one, in aggressive opportunities. And that's because it is a great time to pull when the enemy is alone. Because they cannot contest you, like we've talked about. Like, say you do a small pull, they can't be in the lane and at the small camp at once, so they have to choose one or the other. If they're in the lane, then it's like, okay, cool, I'll deny off my creeps, I'll get my gold and experience here by myself, like, that works out. And if they do come contest you, it's like, okay, it's not great for me as the hard support, but you know what, my carry is over there alone, farming, balancing the wave out, so, I mean, I'm here for the carries, so I'll take it. It kind of just works out where if there's only one enemy, then it's a good time to pull. And before, my default was like, oh, there's only one enemy, like we should go be aggressive on them. But I found that sometimes I was feeling like this didn't feel good. Like, actually, it messed up equilibrium too. Like, trying to go on them, like, it ended up pushing the wave. And then this solo hero somehow got, a wave and a half guaranteed. And, like, how did that happen? And it was because oftentimes they were a hero we couldn't go aggressive on, where they had a good escape mechanism or something, or like they didn't, but they were just too hard to kill, like a Necrophos or a Legion commander, where we wasted time trying to go on them. And because of that, the wave ended up pushing instead of staying balanced, and they got more out of it than they were supposed to. And in those cases, I came to realize that I should actually be pulling. Like, they can't come contest me for the reasons we just discussed. And, like, it was just a better option than trying to be aggressive. Now, of course, it depends, right? Some offlaners are really fragile, and you want to go on them. And I think that's why it's like this. Stumbling on my words, but that's what I want you to get out of this video, where realize you have all these options, but you need to pick the right one. And, like, sometimes it's okay to pick a suboptimal one because you didn't realize what was better. But eventually that'll hurt you, where if you're not picking the best options, like, you're not having the best lane you could. And I think a lot of laning is constantly picking the better option. Like, even as the game is getting weird and all sorts of stuff is getting like all over the place, if you can continuously pick the better option than your enemy, then you will eventually come out ahead. And And when they're alone is like the same as the last time. Like someone could have died, they could be a solo offlaner, like all sorts of stuff. Then when the enemy is just weak and killable, possibly because they're on their own, but maybe not. Like maybe there's two heroes, but you have been harassing them, so they're just weak. Um, then instead of being aggressive, again, it's the same idea as before, where it's like maybe they have escapes or something so that they're weak, but it's hard to go on them. Like if we pull and they want to contest, they actually have to come to us and put themselves in a dangerous position, right? Tusk coming at you with full health, very annoying. Tusk coming at you with 100 health, I'm just going to hit you with a couple spells and auto attacks. Like, get away. I'm pulling here. You're weak. How dare you approach me? Or if Tusk is full health, but you just have a really strong carry, then it's like, yo, kill this guy. He can't be here. And it doesn't matter that he's at full health. Tusk may not be the best example because he has two spells that are pretty good at getting away. But think of another one like Sniper, who Sniper's quite a slow hero. So if he extends too far on his own, even if he is at full health, he could just die. And if you recognize that the 4 position cannot contest you without putting themselves at risk, or that, you know, they are too weak, so it's like essentially the same thing, that could be a good time to pull. If it's too hard to kill them, like just pull, make them come to you, and that makes it harder for them to get away. And it, like, even if they do come to you, again, your carry's back there farming on their own, and because they're weak and you're healthy, hopefully, you know, you should be relatively safe. So just recognize that it's a similar effect to the enemy being alone, where they like can't really contest you even though they are there. And then when your carry needs solo XP right now, like literally this wave will make a difference. So a Slark at level 5, very low health, but he's close to level 6, then it's like, okay, I'm going to go pull this wave so we can get solo XP safe under tower, and then he'll hit 6, and then like that's all we need. Whereas like if the lanes had met normally, then he would have had to walk outside of tower range and he was at risk of dying. Now this doesn't really work if the enemy can just tower dive, and that's why it kind of becomes this, you know, that's why this is so muddy. Or it's it always changes per game. But if they need a certain level and you know they can stay there safely, then it's like, okay, I will do this pull. Usually this single small camp pull is bad for our lane equilibrium, but actually Slark just needs 6 right now so that he can heal up, and then maybe we can even contest this lane because we have more creeps and we can kill them and it'll be okay. Or even if the lane pushes out now, like Slark can go jungle, he can, you know, lane in a bad spot because he has his ult, it's safer, he's healthy. Some heroes don't have this, like Spectre. There's not really a level she needs to hit. Her ult is nice, but again, not necessarily like this big of a deal. I've used Naga as an example where it's like, okay, this is a bad lane. Naga just needs 5 right now. And who cares that the lane equilibrium is going to be bad from this pull, because she's just going to ditch the lane anyways. So, yeah. The last thing we're going to talk about in this video is this thought exercise, where we're going to imagine these opportunities, but from the reverse side. So far, we've been talking about, like, these are all what we want to do as the 5 position. We want to make our carry strong, shut down the offlaner. And you have to know that the enemy 3 and 4, first of all, they just want to disrupt your plan, but they follow a very similar game plan where, you know, they want equilibrium in their favor. They want the carry or their offlaner to get a lot of gold and resources, and they want to shut down your carry. They have some unique things they can do, like, for example, the 4 position could pull our second wave, and it's kind of suicide to try to do that as a 5 position. And because of the differences in the map, like, we can't really do that. It's not an option for us. But then again, there's some unique stuff we can do, right? Where like we can run in and out of the trees to our tower to be a little safer. We can technically half pulling, I feel like, is kind of unique to the 5 position. Whereas, you know, the 4 support could do half pulls with a hard camp. But like we talked about, I don't think it's as good because I think you can be in range for XP relatively safely, so that it's not as good. So think about all this stuff we've talked about and decide, can the 3 and 4 do the same thing, or what makes it unique? And to recognize that, for example, their opportunities to be aggressive are exactly the same as yours. If you use your stun, they might look to be aggressive. If you are alone and you're the hard support, they're going to look to kill you. Or like if you leave your carry alone, they might look to kill him. Is he strong enough to be alone? Then you can start forgetting this point, but until then, like you need to be aware of it. Do you notice that they suddenly have a lot more creeps and that your creeps are dying and that, oh wait, if I go for this last hit, I'm going to put myself at risk? Like, realize all of this applies to you as well. It's not just the enemy who can die, you can die as well. Pulling is kind of the same, where like if the enemy offlane is pushing very heavily into you, like that is their chance to pull the hard camp. And that's usually why you don't want the lane to rubber band too hard. Like it's better to keep it at relative equilibrium or like slightly pushing, because that's much easier to control. And when the enemy pulls the hard camp in those cases, then it's very easy to push your lane quickly and then go farm that hard camp and the wave. And then that is good for us. And know that they're thinking about the same thing. If you leave the lane, like will they be able to pull on the hard carry? Usually, again, this is kind of one of those idiosyncrasies where them pulling against a solo carry is a little bit worse than you pulling against a solo offlaner because of the positioning of the camps. But still, just think about how it applies to yourself so that you can realize I was going for a kill, but I kind of forgot, like, oh, they could just kill me, you know? Keeping yourself aware that it goes both ways helps to make those decisions of, like, okay, these are the opportunities I want to do. And then you compare it to the risk of the opportunities that the offlane is going to try. So you might be thinking, I want to try to pull, but actually they might just try to come kill me because they're really strong and they have that chance right now. So maybe it's not worth taking this risk. And so I'm going to do something else that is, you know, a little less optimal in terms of like technically how much resources we could get, but it's way safer for me to do, and that makes it a better choice. Erring on the side of safety, oh, that's a tough line to say. I wanted to say it's usually better, but sometimes you need to push the limit. So I think what I'll say is that know what you're doing. Know that, okay, I was playing really safe this game and it worked out. Cool. Maybe that's like something I should try. But then if you play really safe and you lose, realize that, oh, maybe I needed to take a couple more risks, or maybe I misevaluated like what was going on. So at least recognize what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to push the limits or trying to be safe, and then see how that plays out. But yeah, this has been about what you're going to do in laning, and it applies from the like first minute after the camp spawn and pulling becomes an option. I mean, technically these principles apply before then too, but really I think about it from the first minute to laning ends, which is the next. Oh, is it? Yeah, it is. When laning ends is going to be the next video, so that's a common question. Like, okay, when do I stop doing this stuff? That changes per game, and we're going to talk about it next time. In the meantime, do your best, because that's really what I do too. Like I said, I make a plan, I try to do my best, but constantly I just have to evaluate and take my best guess at what needs to happen. So I encourage you guys to do the same, and that a good way to improve on it is to look like the replay analysis, either yourself or watch educational content where they go over the laning stage and say like, this is what you could have done here, or this like why you shouldn't have done this. Like, I feel like experience is just the best way to improve at this, because there's just so many opportunities. It's impossible to definitively plan out like, against these heroes I'll do this. You know, just have this general trend of like, strong heroes make me do this, weak heroes make me do this. At times where they're weak, I can do this. Like, that's why I kind of presented it this way instead of talking about specific heroes. Hopefully that helps. Let me know any questions as per usual. Love seeing comments. It's always encouraging and I like answering questions. So yeah, thanks. Have a great day.